Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. Tupac Shakur was the iconic symbol of the past that many women actually more or less desired based on his strong persona and his persona that more or less exuded masculinity. But because of that, many would assume that many women have developed a condition called hybrystophilia. Habistophilia is part of the paraphilias as it relates to women loving abusive men. Habistophilia could be more or less diagnosed or led to many things. Some feel that it's the possibility that some that grew up in poverty or women that were more or less byproducts of poverty have more or less gravitated to men that are aggressive, abusive, and violent. In this show, we want to explore and examine how hybrystophilia has played a role in the impact of the ADOS community and why some of these women that have more or less been associated with bad boys in the past could have a condition called the thug imprint, which in essence led to hybrystophilia. Besides Tupac Shakur, there also was another iconic person by the name of MC Lyte. MC Lyte had a famous song from the 90s said, "I want a roughneck." And that roughneck persona more or less caused a lot of women to gravitate towards men that were thugs and bad boys versus men that were men of virtue and class. Could it be that nature and nurture were more or less coalescing together? Could it be that nurture, which is the social environment, played a greater role than the actual nature of a woman itself? Or is it a combination of both that many women more or less have an internal dialogue within themselves to seek to deal with men that more or less project power and strength, which in essence cause them to get with men that really are damaging and hurting, or more or less men that are damaging and more or less have caused them pain in the past? Has the bad boy culture and the roughneck culture caused some of our women not to be wife ready, but also not to be suitable for a long-term relationship because they have a great love for bad boys? Sit back, relax, and enjoy this show as I bring it to you live from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State. And I need you guys to remember this is there 7 steps to male optimization. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. It's hybrystophilia causing some of our women not to be suitable for relationships and long-term outcomes as it relates to family? You decide. All right, guys, we're about to get into it. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, let me know by hitting 1. I've been rushing a little bit today, guys. I was at the office, but if you guys can hear me, please press the 1 button. I think we are ready to rock and roll. We're going to talk about a condition that's a more or less foretelling of the show that I had with Ten Santos recently, talking about a paraphilia or conditioning called Habistophilia. And it basically means that women fall in love with bad boys. And I told you guys that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized, and understanding family is paramount, not only to the functioning of a man, but also to the functioning of a community. With almost 30% of our men being virgins, it could be more or less suggested that women that have been impacted by bad boys, the thug imprint, doesn't make them suitable for long-term partners, but also in long-term relationships. We're going to explore the dynamics from a sociological perspective, but also from a mating perspective in more or less determining if women that have more or less have a preoccupation or pre-association with bad boys are actually suitable for marriage. So get your pens and paper ready. We're going to start in a few minutes. Let's do it. To you live once again from the greatest state in the union, the Tar Heel State, where the topography is serene, pristine, and verdant green, where every day is Father's Day, and where manhood is part of hills and valleys, victories and failures. And whereas men, we don't agree on all things or ideologies, but tonight we come together as allies of a common cause, only to dissipate once the crisis is over. Now listen, I'm about to drop some fire for your mind, but before I drop that fire, let's explore why we are doing the Manhood Chronicles. All right, guys, we're going to start, and we're going to talk about a condition, guys, called Habistophilia. If you're from the 90s, some of you guys remember iconic features like MC Lyte. MC Lyte talked about I Want a Roughneck. And so many girls from the 90s, but also from the 80s and also present now, had a preoccupation with bad boys, roughnecks, which in essence led to Habistophilia. Habistophilia is part of what's called paraphilias, which tied to sexual disorders. Sexual disorders like exhibitionism, pedophiliism, the love for children. It's a negative love that's outside of the social context. And so many of our women have been more or less impacted or more or less imprinted by bad boys. And with 30% of men that are currently virgins, what does that mean to them? Does it mean that they can get women that are suitable long-term in relationships? Can women that have had a prior preoccupation for bad boys and have more or less been imprinted by bad boys, does it mean that they can be loyal and faithful once they get married? And that's the greatest fear of many men, that a woman have been more or less imprinted by a bad boy. Because what it does, it makes them wonder, if he's going to be suitable in the bedroom. Many bad boys are more or less associated with being violent as it relates in the bedroom. They're related to being more or less sexually potent. And so some men have concerns or consternations about will they be adequate enough to make that woman feel good in the bedroom. And so the preoccupation with the bad boy has been more or less more prominent in these last couple of years. There was another group, I think it was TLC. They wrote a song, and I'm going to talk about that as well, and I'm going to read the lyrics by MC Lyte. Because, a roughneck or a bad boy is often tied to Habistophilia. And see, we talk about Pookie and Ray Ray, but, I came up with two, Raekwon and Man Man, Day Day and them. Raekwon, Man Man, Day Day, Shermite. They all are very toxic men that don't really care. Often men that are raised in single-parent homes in the inner city. Often men that have very high sex drives that will more or less abuse women and more or less not take care of their kids and their responsibility. But see, the thinking era of overgeneralization is the presumption that all men, especially all black men, are more or less guilty of this type of antisocial behavior. And because of that, what happens many times is that some of our women, anytime they see an icon associated with blackness, then they tend to put all black men in that negative characterization. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it because it's very important to talk about the nuances as it relates to this social conditioning and more or less this disorder in the DSM-5 called Habistophilia. And, there's a such thing called necrophilia. Necrophilia is the preoccupation of those that are, exited out or deceased. But Habistophilia is associated with women loving bad boys and dangerous men. And so how can a man compete with a woman that has more or less been on that love spell, that high spell, that intoxication of being with a bad boy? Some of you guys that are listening know women that have been with bad boys. Some of those women in their latter years got with beta male providers or men that were average guys. But on the back end, their bodies are still craving the bad boy. I did a show in the past talking about called Thugged Out. And Thugged Out was more or less synonymous to Jada Pinkett Smith still having a love affair and still having love affairs in her head with the deceased or Tupac Shakur. And so it happens many times. Many times it happens, when they were in college. They like the bad boys. Many got used by bad boys.
Sometimes it happened when they got with, guys from the inner city, because thugs or bad boys have a persona that's often reckless. And so the feminine many times love that recklessness. That's why when they get with average guys, they become bored, because they're used to that dopamine hit. They're used to that rush of being with bad boys that more or less stimulate them in a mental way. And so when an average man comes to the table, he can't compete with that. He can't compete with a bad boy. He can't compete with Shermite, Raekwon, or Man, because, a bad boy is more or less used to, a good guy is more or less used to doing things normal. And so if her psyche has more or less been titillated by a bad boy, then it's that cycle of ongoing issues where that man is never pleased, that man is never happy, because she has been with a bad boy. And so we're going to have a conversation on today. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about that mental health crisis or mental health conditioning that we currently have permeating in the black community. But in the meantime, I'm going to read out some of the stickers. Shout out to the $5 super sticker from a man, 757 Trucker. He said, I'm 35. I can't believe that nowadays men under 30 are virgins. Right. I've always had women throwing sex my way, and I wasn't a thug. But you're right. But you don't necessarily have to be a thug. If you're a masculine man, women are also, ingratiated by men that are masculine. You could be a hard-working brother, 757 Trucker, but if you have any level of high-forming masculinity, you might be 6'2", 6'3", and a good-looking man. Women are going to gravitate to that. So shout out to you, brother, and I really appreciate it. Shout out to Flex Appeal. Shout out for the $5 super sticker. He said that the reincarnation of waiting to exhale chicks have a mask. Entitled, disrespect black men, delusion, and accountability, just like the 90s, right? And I think the 90s Flex Appeal was and or is the epigenesis to a lot of these issues that we're having now. I think the baby boomers started, the Gen X women more or less ran with the baton, and what you're seeing now is the chickens coming home to roost, where you see more than 80% of our children are being born in single parent homes, and they don't have fathers. But once again, we tend to overgeneralize, which is a thinking error, and we tend to equivocate all men as being a small fraction of men that actually do this kind of damage. Now listen, we're not saying that white-collar professional men can't be bad boys too. But in general, the iconic bad boy normally is a roughneck or a thug. And those kind of men are bad boys. They're irresponsible, but they give that woman that dopamine hit, as I said earlier, and they tend to gravitate to that because those men project the illusion of power. Men that are more or less conduits of hybrystophilia, they project the illusion of power. They're not necessarily powerful men, because many thugs are cowards. They won't fight you straight up. They'll take a pistol and they'll take your life, but they don't normally fight you straight up. They're normally cowards. So once again, it's the illusion of power. But many times, guys, that comes from something called homelessness, and also not homelessness, but brokenness. And that brokenness many times comes from fatherlessness. And a lot of these young ladies are more or less interacting and yearning to have fathers based on a condition called vicarious trauma, where they more or less saw their moms not having a father, or saw their mom have multiple men coming in and out of their homes. And so when kids are not used to seeing fathers, then girls many times have a genetic predisposition where they're looking to be led by masculine men. And so what happens when women get with men like that, they repeat that negative cycle of dustiness when they get with these dusty men that are unaccountable. They have no better means for the community. They're basically social derelicts, and they don't add anything of substance to the black infrastructure or the black community. But the caveat to that is that they tend to equivocate, as I said earlier, all men to this negative behavior. Now listen, we're going to look at the lyrics associated with MC Lyte, and when she was talking about a roughneck. 757 Trucker said that he said, I'm a little over 5'7" with broad shoulders. People will call me Big C and it threw me off because I'm not tall. Yes, my closest friend was street dude, so maybe I benefit from that. Yeah, association, your broad shoulders alone, 757 Trucker, personifies a level of masculinity. Like I'm 6'6", well 6'5", 6'6" with shoes on, and my height personifies masculinity, strength, power, and protection. So that's what women more or less gravitate to. But the question remains, audience, based on the definition of hybrystophilia, If you think guys think women that have been impacted by bad boys can be suitable wives, I want you guys to hit 1. If you think a woman that has been more or less impacted by a bad boy can be a suitable wife, I want you guys to hit 1. Hit 1 if you think women that have been impacted by bad boys can be suitable wives, because some will argue that they can't. Some will argue that they will use you as a beta male provider and more or less use you for resources, but on the back end, she's thinking about the times when she got that roughneck that treated her good in the bedroom because he personified masculine energy. And you're just an average guy. You can't compete with that. And so to the 30% of men that have never been intimate with a woman, what are they going to do with that? They can't compete with a man that's been through multiple women. And so, some of the women say they want to get married, but the question remains is, what are you going to give that man in return? Men are looking for a fair exchange, because in fair exchange, there is no robbery. You guys remember times in high school when you were more or less cast aside for the bad boy or the roughneck. Look at the bad boy now. He's broken. He's in jail. He doesn't really add anything of value to the community. Many times he's ignorant. He's still doing the things that he did when he was in high school. He has what's called arrested development. And so, once again, many guys are saying, what am I getting in return? What am I getting in return for my lifelong investment of going to school, applying myself, putting in work, getting my money up, getting my body up? What am I getting in return? Because many don't understand that sex is very hard for most men. The average man, sex is hard. But men that have a level of swag or bravado about themselves, that's a higher percentage, lower percentage, it's easy. So it's not easy for men to get sex. It's not easy. But, once again, it's definitely easier, for women to get copulation. They can get sex easy. And so women have been more or less imprinted by hybrystophilia. Then what will be the outcomes long-term as it relates to long-term sustainable relationships? And some will argue not good at all. So we're going to look at the definition, guys and ladies and gentlemen, of Habistophilia. Guys, thank you for the ones that have donated. If you have not donated, donate to Cash App $7Smalls. Donate to Cash App $7Smalls. I thank you guys for everything you guys have done. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome as we continue to bring forth clarity about mental health awareness. Now, one comes to mind is Jerry Meeks. Jerry Meeks comes to mind. He's like an arch or a kind of icon of what many women like in being a bad boy. Jeremy Meeks. Many women were crazy about Jeremy Meeks. They went crazy about Jeremy Meeks because he had that personification of a bad boy. Jeremy Meeks, probably was, I'm not going to judge the brother, I don't know him, but I would guess that Jeremy Meeks was the kind of dude that probably got plenty of women. He was a Crip. I'm going to argue, or I'm going to make an assumption that he probably was abusive. Charles Manson was an example of women being more or less loving bad boys, or more or less women that have the condition of hybrystophilia. So hybrystophilia can come from, a myriad of different reasons. It can come from not having fathers, in my opinion. But also it can probably come from also being caught up in sexual entanglements with men that were very good in bed. And now these women are very distorted mentally because they have a love or a preoccupation for bad boys. And sometimes, guys, you ask a woman what they want. You guys have heard it. They say, I want a rose. A rose is somebody that got corporate swag. He's smart from a corporate level. But, at the same time, he's nice. So he's like a warrior and a lover and a romantic. And you're not going to get all that in a man, because a roughneck and a bad boy really don't care. They're not going to pursue all of those traits. If you're lucky to get that, it's a unicorn. So Jeremy Meeks is synonymous to that. And we're going to talk about that because Jeremy Meeks is still getting a lot of love in the world, because a lot of women went crazy over Jeremy Meeks. Many went crazy over this guy. And many still love men like Jeremy Meeks now. So to the average guy, how can he compete with that? How can he compete with a Jeremy Meeks? So we're going to look at this real quick, this quick little viral video that went out in the past, and we're going to talk about that pre-association. So, guys, when you think about men like Jeremy Meeks, I do believe that women have a level of genetic predisposition for stronger masculine men that are dangerous. Well, I'm not going to say necessarily dangerous, but risky. And I'm not saying that every woman wants a bad boy. But I think women are, at a subconscious level, more or less preoccupied or more or less geared towards having tough men. You know, you think about the football players. You know, the football players symbolize the warriors. You think about the police officers. They are strong. They symbolize strength and protection. And Jeremy Meeks, you know, you can tell he got a star or a teardrop by his eye. And that symbolizes, guys, that Jeremy Meeks perhaps was complicit in Xing people out. Keep listening. And many like this level of dysfunction. You hear what the lady said, the ladies loved him. So where does an average guy stand a chance just but for being a beta male provider, you know, a drone, a worker bee, you know, because some of the women that have been to college, you know, they got with bad boys. Their bodies are used to bad boys. They're not going to tell you that, but they're used to bad boys. And, you know, some of them were just a stage in their life when they were experimenting. But if that bad boy done things to them that that average man can't do, they're not going to tell you, but they could be struggling with that. And because they're struggling with that, then once again, to the good guys that have waited, to the good guys that have had limited sexual experience, then what is that man getting in return? What is he getting in return for his years of waiting because of religious reasons, but also because, you know, sexual availability is not as easy to the average guy. And I say average. Normally guys that are very masculine, tall, got money and status, you know, they more or less in a certain percentile. Some would say 20%, 10%, 5%. Those men have more access to women and sex. The average guy don't in many ways, unless he's a bad boy with swag and he's a thug. Keep listening. And to be fair, guys, you know, there's been a lady more or less circulating in YouTube, and, you know, more or less it talks about her and people's association with this woman in YouTube that was complicit in Xing people out as well. And, you know, now, you know, there are some guys, you know, I call them weak men that are more or less brokering for this woman, saying that they would love to be with her. You know, she's a very attractive woman, but she was complicit in doing bad. So men too some men can have a preoccupation with bad girls as well. But I think it tends to be more so with our women, as hybrystophilia is a real diagnosis in the DSM-5. Keep listening. All right, so let's X this out, and we're going to talk about the definition of what hybrystophilia is. We're going to talk about it. Give me a minute. We're going to talk about the definition of hybrystophilia. But in the meantime, hold tight. Guys, keep the likes up. If you have not donated, donate to Cash App $7 So hold tight. We're going to talk about the definition and the causes of it. And so, based on the definition, although among the possible causes that we can find the following: it's normally a history of abuse. Studies have shown that women who have a history of abuse in childhood tend to choose sexual and romantic partners with criminal and aggressive profiles. That's called trauma bonding. They tend to bond to the trauma of the men that abused them. And this continues the pattern of abuse, meaning women that are of domestic abuse, and I'm going to guesstimate, could have a pre-association with hybrystophilia, you know, because these men are very exciting, but they're dangerous. But at the same time, it's like a vice and a virtue. You know, the vice is that the danger, you know, good in the bedroom, and you know, he got a bravado or swag about him. But on the flip side, these kind of men don't add any good to the greater society. You know, we call them the Dusties, you know, the Raekwons, the Man-Mans, the Shermites. They don't add any quality or value. And you saw the elation in those women. You know, she said, the white woman said, I can help him with his mascara. So what do men that are average have in common with such of that ilk? So, hold tight. You guys are saying no volume? I don't know why people say they can't hear volume. You guys can't hear me? If you can't hear me, let me know. Let me know if you can't hear me. Top Gun say no volume. So, life coach is saying no volume. I don't know what's going on. Okay, you guys hear me now. If you can hear me, hit 1. If you can hear me, hit 1. Because some are saying no volume. I had this issue. I don't know what's going on with this thing, man. But if you guys can hear me, I need everybody to hit 1. And we're going to finish this conversation. So if you can hear me, hit 1. All right. Great. I apologize. I don't know what's going on. All right. So Charles Manson, guys, is an example of someone that was complicit maybe in hybrystophilia. Charles Manson was somebody that perhaps was complicit in women loving them because of hybrystophilia. And, you know, it's an issue. It's an issue, and it's an issue that's most problematic. And I'm going to give you an example. Here's one, and I was correct. So let's look at the Charles Manson case. Let's look at the Charles Manson case. And, you know, you look at these men were sick. Manson, Dahmer, and Ramirez, they were all sick. They had very heinous crimes. But someone will ask, how can a woman love someone of this negative ilk? How can a woman love somebody with a very violent and nasty, dirty past like Manson, Dahmer, and Ramirez? All right, so that's one example. That is one example, and we're going to look at a few more about women that were complicit in hybrystophilia. But in the meantime, let's read these lyrics by MC Lyte from the past when she's talking about a roughneck. You know, because MC Lyte talked about what she wanted. She said she wanted a roughneck. And you see it on and on and on and on. You know, that Gen X women, not Gen X women, women from the 90s, more or less start this negative brigade of brokenness that we have now. Hold tight. Can't play the video. Hold tight, guys. So let's look at the lyrics real quick. All right, I don't know where this is at. I'm trying to find the lyrics to Roughneck, but I think you guys get the drift. Hold tight. I don't know why the song keep coming up, but anyway, you guys get the drift. There was a generation of women that were more or less preoccupied with women like MC Lyte. Women like MC Lyte. Women like MC Lyte were more or less, complicit in this kind of bad behavior, you know. And let me see if I can find the lyrics, guys. Hold on. If you guys can hear me. I saw them earlier, but hold tight. Struggle streaming a little bit. Hold tight. All right, I got them. Finally got them, guys. Got them. All right. So, got it. Can you guys see it? Hold tight. Hold tight. Can you guys see it? Can you guys see the lyrics? Well, anyway, I'm just going to read them out. I don't know. I don't know what the hell this thing is doing. Anyway, gotta who, gotta have a what? gotta have a roughneck. I need a roughneck, a dude with an attitude. Only he needs his fingers with his food. Carl Kanai sagging, Timbo's dragging, fronting in his ride with his homies, boys bragging. Lying about the light, how he knocked the boots last night, but he's a roughneck, so that's right. So, you already hear MC Lyte talking about her enjoying that violent nature of bad boys. You always hear her talking about, her enjoying that violent nature of bad boys, roughnecks. And, some of our women are still associated on the low. They love roughnecks. They love bad boys. And so, lying about how he, knocked the boots last night, but he's a roughneck. Triple old baddie under the hood, making noise with his boys up to no good. See low, down low, cops around, so roughneck front like he gotta go. Evil grin with a mouth full of teeth. That's a thug. That's a bad boy. Starting beef is how he spells relief. Acting like he don't care, but all I gotta do is beat 911 and he'll be there. Right by my side, his roughneck tactics, roughneck attitude, the roughneck, B word. Hey, gotta go. You gotta get a roughneck. I need it and I want it. I gotta get a roughneck. Got what, yo? Gotta get a roughneck. I need it and I want it. I gotta get a roughneck. And so you guys get it. I'm not gonna read all the lyrics, but you see that this was a preoccupation with a lot of our women years ago. They had a preoccupation with bad boys. They had a preoccupation with it. And so we gotta ask ourselves the question, where do we go from here? Can a society and the broader infrastructure be raised, guys, if we got women that have a strong love for bad boys and roughnecks? Guys, if you can hear me, somebody said we can hear you. The video was silent. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I apologize, guys. I don't know what's going on with this damn thing, man. Y'all, please forgive me. I don't know what's going on. But you guys see it and I see it. There are some that have a preoccupation with bad boys and roughnecks. So I'm going to ask you guys a question that are listening. Can a woman that's more or less been impacted by bad boys be redeemable? Can a woman that's been impacted by bad boys be redeemable? But you guys, once you more or less explore her past, given a woman that have had an excessive amount of dealings with bad boys, do you think that programming goes on even to the relationship? Could you have a level of trust for a woman that was a bad boy? She said the music did not play. Well, no, I don't want the music to play because there'll be a copyright strike. So I did that intentionally. We don't want the music to play because the music play, it's a copyright strike. So yeah, I didn't want it to play because it goes against it's copyright claims, and I can't take that risk. But to the guys that are listening, also to the ladies that are listening, have you ladies been impacted by bad boys? Have you been impacted by, quote unquote, a roughneck? And because of that bad boy persona, then what does that mean, or what does that mean to the evolution of our community long term? Can women be adequately stimulated if they've been with bad boys? Have some of you women that are listening been with bad boys, and what parts do you regret? Was your life ever threatened by being with a bad boy? So let's look at this. Hold tight. And then we're going to have a conversation. Hold tight. I am really struggling today, guys.
Ramirez would use a variety of weapons to talk about serial killers. My name is Sheesh Merriweather, and I'm the founder of Crime Viral Online. Today, I'll be doing what I do best, which is talking about serial killers. If you have ever wondered why on earth women would fall in love with an incarcerated serial killer, and the psychology behind this, well, gather round and I'll explain it all. First, we will take a look at serial killer Richard Ramirez, who became known as the Night Stalker after he terrorized those who lived in Greater Los Angeles and San Francisco in the mid-1980s. Ramirez would use a variety of weapons, including a .22 revolver, knives, machetes, tire irons, hammers, to bludgeon his victims to death, often after he had sexually assaulted them. In his own sinister words, he revealed, "I love to kill people. I love to watch them die. I would shoot them in the head and they would squirm all over the place and then just stop. Or I would cut them with a knife and watch their faces turn white. I love all that blood." Despite his list of convictions that amounted to 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault and 14 counts of burglary, he still managed to attract many female admirers. During his trial, when evidence of these violent attacks on women were being read out loud, one juror, Cindy Hayden, had started to fall in love with the sadistic serial killer. Ramirez, aware of this power that he had over her, would...
And you know, many times, guys and ladies that are listening, these kind of men are very dangerous. Many times they have very narcissistic traits. Sometimes they can be sociopaths, and sometimes they can be psychopaths. And so they're very dangerous. They're very dangerous men. They really don't have a conscience. They're very manipulative, and they tend to prey on women that are empaths. And that's why it's so important, guys, to have family and have strong fathers guiding and leading these young ladies.
Would make eye contact throughout the trial, and on Valentine's Day she gifted him a cupcake with a message, "I love you," iced on top. Shortly after, she was dismissed from jury duty. Following his sentencing in court, which was the death penalty, Cindy continued to visit Ramirez behind bars. Eventually, she even introduced her parents to the serial killer. However, for her, she was just another face in a long queue of female admirers, all waiting to share a tender moment with the devout Satanist. According to the San Francisco Gate, during his 23 years on death row, he received bags upon bags of mail, mostly from women. So what is hybrystophilia? Becoming infatuated with someone who has committed a serious crime, such as sexual assault or murder, is known as hybrystophilia. It is one of the reasons behind the thousands of letters sent to serial killers from their admirers each year. In popular culture, it is also known as Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. There are many reasons behind this disorder. Professor of forensic psychology Catherine Ramsland reveals that women who have dated serial killers, like in the case of Richard Ramirez, even gone as far as marrying him, do so for the following reasons. They believe they can change a man as cruel and powerful as a serial killer. They see the little boy that the killer once was and seek to nurture him. They hope to share in the media spotlight or get a book or movie deal.
And many times that's nurturing the devil. You cannot nurture somebody like that. Many times they are hard to treat. Psychopaths and sociopaths many times are very hard and difficult to treat. Some will say that there's no redeeming hope from a psychological perspective.
They believe they are dating the perfect boyfriend. They are unable to find love in normal ways, or they seek relationships that cannot traditionally be consummated. Then there also is this distorted idea of the perfect boyfriend. To a woman who has suffered in an abusive relationship in the past, a convicted criminal behind bars makes for an ideal partner. Allow me to explain. She knows where he is at all times. She knows, or at least believes, he is thinking about her because, well, he has a lot of hours in the day that he needs to fill doing not much else. While she can claim that he loves her, she does not have to endure the day-to-day issues involved in a traditional relationship, such as there's no laundry to do or cooking for him, and no accountability to him. So she can keep that fantasy charged up for a long time. Sheila Eisenberg, author of Women Who Love Men Who Kill, explained, if the guy is behind bars, it is always exciting. It is easier to get a date or attention from a serial killer than, say, Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt, for example, he's going to ignore your letters. He's not going to write back, but this guy is. He's probably reading his letters and responding to you because it puffs him up. It raises his status in his own eyes. So let's take a look at the marriage of Richard Ramirez and Doreen Loy. Doreen was a freelance teenage magazine writer and a self-described Catholic virgin from San Rafael. She became obsessed with Ramirez and in total had penned the serial killer 75 letters before he finally agreed to meet her behind bars. Doreen told the LA Times how she initially fell for Ramirez. She recalled, "This was a feeling that began for as long ago as the night before he was arrested, and police broke into the television show I was watching to broadcast his picture. Looking back, I see it was a turning point for me. He shows this mugshot in the middle of Dallas, and I saw something in his eyes, something that captivated me. It wasn't as if I knew him, but it was something in his eyes, maybe a vulnerability, I don't really know."
And you know, guys and ladies still listening, ask yourself the question, do some of our women become complicit in their own ignorance because they try to repair broken and damaged men? Is there a more or less precursory term for some of our women that want to fix men that are broken and damaged? They already have been known to have what's called violent tendencies. Because many times, you know, they get with men like this and then they complain about the outcome years later.
On October 3rd, 1996, they were married in California's San Quentin State Prison. Despite Doreen stating that she would commit suicide when Ramirez was executed, they eventually decided to divorce as she discovered he had 12 other girlfriends on the go. Who would have thought a serial killer would be cruel enough to cheat on his own wife? Doreen also revealed that she found the marriage lonely because her husband was unable to be beside her and she was unable to reach him the majority of the time. That's because he's on death row as an incarcerated serial killer, Doreen. So remember, people, please at all times don't be a Doreen, as it can have fatal results. Serial killer Philip Carl Jablonski was convicted of brutally murdering 5 female victims between 1978 and 1991. Jablonski was a serial killer and a sadist. He preyed on women. He previously had attempted to suffocate his first wife and he murdered the mother of his own daughter. He was sentenced to only 12 years behind bars, and despite his history of violent crimes, he met Carol Spadoni when she responded to a Lonely Hearts ad for prisoners. They first became pen pals, and following his release, they moved in together. 1 year later, both Carol and her mother were murdered by Jablonski. He is currently now on death row for these crimes. Well, if you watch this...
All right, guys, enough of that. I don't want to put you guys to sleep, but you guys get the drift. You guys get the drift about Habistophilia. It's a woman's preoccupation and the love for bad boys. What percentage of our women, guys, do you think have a preoccupation for bad boys? What percentage would you say are complicit in dealing with men that mean them no good? Can the broader community be saved if our women have been more or less with bad boys and men that cause them distress long term? To the guys that are listening, have you dealt with women that were more or less with bad boys? What was the outcome of that relationship with dealing with men like that? Because, it appears that many tend to gravitate towards those type of men. And to the young men that are listening, do you feel like you have any hope when it comes down to dealing with women that have had a preoccupation with men that lack clarity and men that lack substance? So let's go back in time, because we got to ask ourselves the question, if 30% of our men, or a small percentage of our men, are causing all the problems, why are so many good men associated with the bad boys? Why are good men given the same negative label of the 20% of men or 30% of men that cause the most chaos? It's been told in some studies that a large percentage of men are childless, they're single, and they're handling their business. But a lot of these men are very invisible. They're very invisible. And because these men are very invisible, a lot of men are frustrated. They're frustrated about their options. Could you imagine a time when 30% of men are virgins? How could 30% of American men be virgins? That's a lot of men. 30% under the age of 29 are virgins. How could that happen? But so it appears that these men are very much invisible. They're invisible. And you can't have a very vibrant community. You can't even have a society if you live in a time in a world where your men are invisible and they're not getting their needs met. And some of these men actually turn to rage because, some would say they're socially awkward. Some would say they don't deserve women because they don't know how to talk. They don't have a good mouthpiece. But, some will ask the question then, why do I need game for women that don't even respect me? Some men will argue that game is a waste of time. So I'm going to read through some of these comments. Big Smooth said she will find a reason to talk about him out of the blue. Right. She said because she can't shake the imprint. I agree. I think it's very hard for them to shake that imprint. Once they get imprinted by a bad boy, I think it's hard for them to shake that imprint, even after they get married. Howie Adams said, what's the opposite of a bad boy? You tell me. I would say a good man. But, I think bad boys make up a smaller percentage of the good men that exist. I think there's a quotient that's, bad, violent, and disrespectful. But I don't think that's the overarching majority. And you're right, Mr. Albert, a large portion have STDs that are pretty high. You're right. Big Smooth said a Boy Scout. So a roughneck, a bad boy. Of any of the men that are listening, were you guys reformed bad boys? Were you guys roughnecks? Have you men dated women that were more or less dealing with men that were complicit in hybrystophilia? Have you guys dealt with women that were complicit in dealing with men that were complicit in hybrystophilia? And if you have, what was the dating relationship like? Was it very toxic? Because many men are saying that when they get in a relationship, they don't want to deal with women. They've had a lot of problems in the past, and then they bring those problems from the past into the current relationships. They have to deal with that negativity. They have to deal with those negative outcomes. And a lot of men are having issues with that. They don't want to deal with women like that because those women cause a lot of problems. Top Gun said, outstanding gentleman. Ex-church girl said that when I think about bad boys, I think about drug dealers and men who flow in and out of jail. But the question, ex-church girl, is why do our women have such a preoccupation? Is there a preoccupation because of brokenness? Is there a preoccupation because these men have been known to be sexually violent or dominant in the bedroom? Because many women have had their backs blown out by bad boys. And some can't shake it. And you're right, Top Gun, many are very toxic, very toxic. And so, because I believe that they take on the energy of that man, even when they're trying to redeem themselves, they take on that image. A woman that's been with a bad boy, the average guy can't compete with that. He can't. And so that's why it's so important for men to know if that woman was abused or talk about her past to see if she was more or less damaged by bad boys. If she was damaged by Raekwon and she was damaged by Man or guys that got swag. And so I want to ask the ladies, why are we so preoccupied, many of our women preoccupied with bad boys? Or what they call a rose, a man that's a corporate, what they call the corporate thug. I might even do a show on that at some point called The Corporate Thug. Why are some of our women preoccupied with those types of men? Why? Ex-church girls say it's acceptable in our society as toxic as it is. It's very toxic. Very toxic. I agree there. But anyway, we got to ask ourselves the question, why? Why? And what do you guys think about the term hybrystophilia? Have you guys heard of it? Are you familiar with that term, hybrystophilia? Have you ever heard of it, hybrystophilia? Well, ex-church girl, I'll talk about that at some point, But normally a corporate thug is a man that has the swag of a thug, but he got the mental and social acumen of a businessman. He's like a white-collar guy. He's a white-collar guy with some street appeal. You know how to handle his business in the bedroom and in the streets if he need to. But at the same time, he's very intelligent. Could be more or less synonymous, if you want to think about it in the movie world, to Idris Elba. Idris Elba could be the personification of a corporate thug. Highly educated, but at the same time, he can lay it down in the bedroom. He's very masculine, and he'll put that heat on you if you need to. So that's an example of a corporate thug. But once again, have any of you women been more or less familiar with the terminology called hybrystophilia? Have you ever heard of it? Is this the first time you've heard the terminology hybrystophilia? And if so many women are more or less leading more or less with their desires for toxic men, then what does it mean long term for the sustainability not only of our culture, but also the sustainability of our culture in our future? I did a show with my man Ted Santos, and we talked about it in part. We talked about hybrystophilia. And it was talking about women that had a lot of fun. Can they be wife ready, or are they able to be wife ready in the future? So once again, guys, get the likes up. If you have not donated, guys, donate to the channel. Cash out $7 Smalls. I apologize for starting the show so late. I was rushing back from the office. I was seeing some patients, and I started a little late, so I apologize for that. I should have more or less put the show back and not rush it, but I want to make sure I go ahead and do the show for you guys since it was scheduled. And we got a great show coming up this week, so guys, get ready. I might even drop another bomb at some point tomorrow or Friday, talking about the many issues that we currently have in our society. So we got to continue to have a conversation. Have you ladies ever dated bad boys? Have you guys been in conditions where you were imprinted by bad boys, or you thought you can change a bad boy, or were you ever in a relationship where you love abusive men? What percentage, guys, would you say is of our women that love abusive men? Would you say is a very high percentage? Or would you guys say that it's very low? Would you say that many of our women, that over 50% of our women like bad boys? Or would you say they did like bad boys in the past, but now they want decent men because they realize that the bad boys are toxic and they had all their fun? What's your guys' take on that? She said, got it, yes. She said, Idris, you funny, ex-church girl. You are funny. Shout out Ray Hammer. How you doing, brother? Ray Hammer Force. How you doing, sir? How are you doing? So let's have the conversation, guys. Let's have the conversation, ladies. You ladies are normally shy. Y'all don't pop on the stream. But what percentage of guys, or what percentage of women do you guys think have been more or less impacted by men that commit hybrystophilia? Why do so many of our women love toxic men? Is it a black woman thing? Is it an American woman thing? Is it a Western thing? Can women that have more or less been in relationships with bad boys, can they be redeemable? So I'm going to drop the link and have a discussion. And we're going to talk about it, because this was a topic that I wanted to cover. And, let's have a conversation about hybrystophilia. Have some of you ladies been impacted by bad boys that you try to redeem? Ray Ray, Pookie, Man, Shermite, Day, and them, that you tried to redeem them. And what were the results? What percentage of our women, or what percentage of our society have these kind of men that are reckless, not only with their phallus, but also reckless as it relates to the streets and reckless with the court system? So let's have a conversation. Because we see so much dysfunction permeating in our community. Will we ever go back to a time when we have a love for this good, hard-working, average men? Ladies that are listening, are good, hard-working, average men boring? Are good, hard-working, average men boring? Guys, get the likes up, please. If you have not donated, donate to the channel. Donate to Cash App, $7 Smalls. Hit the super sticker as well, because these shows are very time-consuming. But to the ladies that are listening, is there a preoccupation for bad boys? What is your testimony from dealing with bad boys, violent, dusty men that don't add anything of clarity or substance to the broader community? Why are women so preoccupied with bad boys? Have any of you ladies been victims of hybrystophilia? Have any of you ladies grown up in homes where you didn't have fathers or strong men to cover you? Do you still struggle with hybrystophilia, the love for bad and abusive men? He said that boring men live long. Alicia Dalasaro said, no, I don't think my opinion counts on this topic. Well, listen, that's why I like to hear the women have a conversation too. Feel free to cam up, Alicia Dalasaro, or you can just talk. But you're right, Mr. Abbott. Boring people do live longer. Many don't like the boring guy, but the boring guy is very stable. Raekwon the Man is not stable. They're fun. They're exciting. They might blow your back out in the bedroom, but they're not stable long term, and they can't more or less give you the outcomes that you need for building families. And listen, let's ask ourselves the question, why is it that some of the other ethnic groups are more or less okay with boring? Do you guys think this is an ethnic issue where a lot of our women have a strong preoccupation with bad boys? They have a preoccupation with dusty men. Do you think that's an issue? Because if it is the issue, then we need to have a conversation, because some are looking for husbands, some are looking for marriages. But if you've been with dusty men, you might need therapy and counseling. You might need to come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com to make sure you don't have a schema affliction or any other issue that have more or less been impacting you or could be impacting you long term. So let's have a conversation, guys. And if you have not donated, donate to the channel. Donate to Cash App $7 Smalls. And let's talk about these issues that are going on in our community. Let's talk about these issues, because there's a lot of brokenness with our men and our women, because we tend to celebrate toxicity. We tend to celebrate bad behavior. We tend to celebrate those things that are not advantageous to us long term. And because we celebrate negativity and badness, or not badness, but negativity and very toxic things like hybrystophilia, what does it mean long term for the sustainability of families? Ladies, have you been preoccupied with bad boys? And do you still struggle with dealing with bad boys? Because this is a very important topic. Man, y'all ladies, y'all ladies are cows, man. I love you ladies, but you ladies will not pop in, man. But in the meantime, I'm going to run this commercial, guys. We need you guys to get the likes up, and please donate to the channel. Real quick.
Are you a victim of brokenness and despair? A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man. Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways, to the point it's led over into your social life, and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.
All right. Hybrystophilia. Have any of you ladies been impacted by hybrystophilia? Like y'all can tell the truth anyway. We know y'all ain't gonna tell the truth. But how many of you ladies have been dealing with or have dealt with men in the past that were more or less icons of hybrystophilia? And did it leave you in a state of ill repair? Did it leave you broken? Did it leave you in a traumatic state? Do you still struggle with men that have more or less been complicit in hybrystophilia? And if a large percentage of our women love men like this, then what is the outcomes long term for our community and also for our nation? So let's have a conversation. Because many guys that are single feel that being an average guy is boring. They feel like that being an average guy is boring. And if that is the case, then why? Why do we celebrate toxic behavior? Why do we celebrate bad boys? Harry Adams, you said no. I don't know what that means. You said no. I don't know what that means there. But yeah, so let's have a conversation, guys. The link has been dropped. What do you think about this topic? How is this topic germane to the current cesspool that we have here in America? Where do we go from here if we celebrate toxicity? Where do we go from here if a lot of our women love bad boys and men that don't more or less mean anything for them long term? How can our girls be covered and protected if we have an abiding love for bad boys, bad men that are dusty, and bad men that don't more or less bring forth the proper, appropriate outcomes long term? What does it mean? And once again, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Because we can't turn this current social issue around until we more or less look at the core issue and more or less find viable solutions long term. Ex-church girl said that, look at Tasha K's story, toxic, but everyone was entertained by. Right. We tend to get entertained by toxicity. We say we look for solutions. We're always talking about what's wrong with our community, but we're more reactive than we are proactive. And so as a clinician, I try to bring you guys clarity to what's going on to find solutions. But, many times the things that are more or less sustainable long term are not more or less salacious. Salaciousness, gossip, toxicity are the things that sell in this culture. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But ladies, once again, you can pop in. The men, I need you guys to pop in. Let's have a conversation. Why do you think hybrystophilia is so rampant in our community? Where do we go from here? Because we can't recover as a community until we begin to address this topic that so many don't want to talk about. So many don't want to talk about, and it's very important. Ex-church girl said, when you are told to run from a fight, now people pull out a camera and watch. Right. I totally agree with you. And that's a sign of a very toxic and a very dangerous culture that we live in. I agree with you, ex-church girl. You're correct. Ray Johnson said these bad boys have a big time imprint on them. It lingers for years. I totally agree. And many won't admit it, but the roughneck, the bad boy, I can't think of the group. I don't know if it was Destiny's Child. They made a song called, I can't think of that. What was the name of the song by Destiny's Child talking about bad boys? But, this stuff didn't just start overnight, guys. This has been going on since the 90s about the love and the celebration of bad boys. And I think, like I said, some still have an abiding preoccupation for it. Who would say that, if the bad guy that they got with from the past pop back up and then bring back memories or even bring back tingles? And so, it's something to talk about. It's something to think about, because bad boys are continue to more or less permeate in our society. A lot of the brokenness that you see now are the spawns of bad boys. They're the spawns of bad boys. Hold tight. Trying to find these 33 men that got, these 3 men that got irresponsible men. Hold tight. Hold tight. So this is an example. I'm gonna show you guys this clip. This is an example of a Raekwon and a Man, a guy that got a bunch of women pregnant. But we tend to associate all of our men with these dusty, violent men that don't add any clarity long term to our family and also our community. I don't know why so many are preoccupied with men of this ilk. Men that are very dusty. Hold on. I don't know what's going on. But so how many of you guys remember the number of men in Tennessee that got several women pregnant? There was a time in Tennessee where there was like 3 men, and these 3 men got I think they got over. These 3 men got over 33 women pregnant. I don't know if you guys remember that. Do you guys remember that these 3 men that got the 33 women pregnant? I think it was in Tennessee. I think it was over 70% of women, over 70 women pregnant. And I think these guys symbolize what you call the Raekwons and the Man-Mans, the dusty. Men that are more or less horrible, and men that don't add any value to our community. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot where only a small percentage of men, oh yeah, okay, here you go, hold tight. Let's talk about it, hold tight. Let me share this real quick, guys, hold tight. All right, let's explore this real quick. And why these men are not necessarily abusive, they can be abusive because these are some blue-collar men. These are intellectual men. We tend to think of Habistophilia with thugs and bad boys. But white-collar men can be bad boys as well. White-collar men can be bad boys as well, but the iconic archetype are the Raekwons and the Man-Mans. Those are the iconic archetypes. So listen.
We have multiple children with different women. Nathaniel, stand up. How many children?
28.
How many women?
16.
Terrence.
4
children with
2 different women.
Yeah. Ryan.
Almost 5 children with 4.
Almost 5.
Yes,
now talk to me about almost 5.
I have another baby due November.
So, guys, ask yourself the question if this is the case. If our women are more or less complicit in bad behavior, why do women continue to gravitate with men that show a pattern of dysfunction? Because I'm sure some of these women knew that these men had babies by multiple women. Now, these men do hold a level of accountability, but I'm going to put a greater accountability on the women that knew that these men were very reckless with their bodies and reckless with getting women impregnated, because that's a form of abuse in my mind to some degree, because they're not more or less standing by these women and these children, these dusty ones. But the women got to also hold a level of accountability as well because they were complicit. Shout out to Top Gun for the $2 super sticker. He said Clarence Carr. Yes, a lot of Clarence Carr is stroking, bro. A lot of Clarence Carr is stroking. But anyway, let's continue.
The 22nd.
So 4 children.
4 children.
How many mothers?
4 different women.
4 different women.
Yes.
And you got a baby on the way. Okay. And John?
6 baby mothers, 11 children.
11 children. And
see, guys, this is disgusting. This is pathetic. Almost like these men are breeders. But the women are equally disgusting because they allow it. A man can do no more than a woman allows him to do. And, you know, I'm sure these women had to know that these men were dusty, but they got with them. And, you know, they appear to be very upstanding men, but then again, you know, who knows? They dress very well, the majority of them. But, you know, Pookie and Ray Ray and Shermite are normally bad boys, but bad boys can be white-collar men, too. Keep listening.
Jumani?
I have 6 children with 4 different women.
4 different women.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, here's what I want us to get. That these men, collectively, have 87 children, that includes Jay, with 50 different women. That is 137 people who are impacted by choices and decisions that you've made. No heat, no judgment. I've got some stats for you. Children who come from fatherless homes. And I say fatherless because...
And keep in mind, guys, this is not the typical American ADOS man. This is a small percentage of men creating this level of chaos. But kids that grow up in families where they don't have fathers, the girls can become complicit of, and the boys like direction. They tend to get involved in gangs. They tend not to graduate. They tend to be have high levels of mental illness like ODD and recidivism issues. And the girls tend to get pregnant more. They tend to have very toxic and violent behaviors. The boys and the girls are at greater risk for molestation when the fathers are out of the homes. But once again, then what do we say to these women that are allowing these men to more or less use their bodies as a breeding ground?
6 men, 87 kids. Even if you're there are pieces that are going to be missing. Would that be accurate? And I'm not saying you're not doing the best you can. I'm not saying that you don't want to be there. But at this point now, we have to look at the children's experience. Children from fatherless homes in this country, 5 times more likely to commit suicide than children who have a father in the home.
And there was a time, guys, where suicide was not as high as it is now. Suicide rates in the ADOS community is higher, more higher than it ever had been before in the past. Because in the past, we had something called community. Community prevents the rise of hybrystophilia. Because hybrystophilia is a byproduct of dysfunction and brokenness. That's why I told you guys that family is so important. But also understanding female psychology, how and why some of these women allow these irresponsible men to get with them. But could these women be the spawns of dysfunctional families and broken families? Because remember, there was a time that 73% of children were born in single-parent homes. Now it's over 70%, and the numbers are rising precipitously.
32 times more likely to run away. 20 times more likely to have a behavioral disorder. 14 times more likely to become sexually aggressive or commit rape. 10 times more likely to engage in drug abuse. It just breaks my heart. No heat, no judgment. You, to me, are the voice and the demonstration that's going to create a healing in this world. We have got to do better. We've got to do better. And what I'm offering is that it's time for brothers to start fathering each other.
But see, this is where Irrational is correct. We do have to get better, but then you need to hold the women accountable as well for allowing it. Because there was a time when our women were very conservative. They were ladies. They respected themselves, and they did not more or less allow this type of toxic behavior. Prior to the sexual revolution, many women were very chaste and respectable. But those were the times of the past. There was a time if a woman had kids out of wedlock, she was seen as a pariah, meaning she was excommunicated from the community. But now dysfunction and toxicity is celebrated. Like I said before, we run to toxic stuff. We run to drama. We don't run to things that are based on solutions. We are reactive instead of proactive. We don't want to problem solve. We like it easy. We love being in dysfunction. Actually, dysfunction is the new normal. And this kind of behavior is very dysfunctional. And Irrational is talking about these men, but she needs to equally hold these women accountable because they allow these men to more or less use their bodies as receptacles. Keep listening.
So, Jay, let's talk about what life has been like for you since the show has aired. If you watched last week, you know that now one of the 34 is in question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that situation doesn't surprise me at all. In that particular situation with Ayanna, I did not want to deny a child that could potentially be mine. I would rather have it accept my place as his dad based on what the woman was telling me.
She never told him you were his
Absolutely,
father, so.
And as I suspected, the child is likely not mine based on my communication from her and what was revealed. But how do you, I want to do 2 things. First of all, my intention is to create a safe space for men to examine and discuss the worst of who you are and who you've been, so that we can facilitate a commitment to change. Not to beat you up and not to beat you down, but we've got to look at where this came from in order to build and go forward. The other part of the intention is to really understand that this is not just about creating multiple children in the world with multiple people. It's about how we create relationships, because that's what you have to heal with your children. Because you're getting ready to be a grandfather. Your son, Absolutely.
not married, having his first child.
And it's a cycle of brokenness. It's a cycle of deprivation. And it's unfortunate, guys. It's very much unfortunate.
One of your daughters, not married, had her first child. The pattern.
Right. And she's correct about that. And that part is a pattern of dysfunction that you guys see currently more or less dissipate. Shout out to my man James Turner. Thank you, brother, for the $25 super stick. I appreciate it, Mr. Turner. You always more or less support this chat. I appreciate what you do, and you are now the sponsor for this chat. So I thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner said that, Coach, I think it has many factors. Some are afraid to talk to women and treat women how she really wants to be treated. Men who bring out their sexual desires. Right. Some lack self-esteem, some want excitement. Right. It's a combination of things. I totally agree, brother. And then he also said, no shade, Ivana Van Zant, but she was married to an abusive man. Right. Why did she get with that person, and what part did she play? And we don't talk about that, and that's the problem. So we need to have a conversation. The link has been dropped. This stream won't be long, but I wanted to talk about hybrystophilia because we got to ask ourselves the question, what percentage of our women are complicit in hybrystophilia? And if a large percentage of our women are more or less complicit in hybrystophilia, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Will there ever be a time when we can have another vibrant black community? Some of you ladies and men are from the class of 90. Could it be argued that the Gen Xers are the cause of this dysfunction? Did it start with the baby boomers and the Gen Xers got the baton and now we got a bonfire? So let's have a conversation. The link has been dropped. I would like to hear from some of the men. I also would like to hear from some of the women about this topic called hybrystophilia, the love and the preoccupation with abusive men that more or less abuse women, and women love these types of men. And if women love these types of men, then how can we have, I have the community, especially the good men that have limited experience dating and or dealing with women. So the link has been dropped. Let's have a conversation. What do you guys think about this topic? What do you think about the conversation? My man Tim Howard has dropped the link, and let's talk about it. Hybrystophilia. What do you guys think about it? Let's share. Let's have a conversation. Some call them Pookie and Ray Ray. They're abusive. Some call them Raekwon and Man Man. But let's talk about it. Because until we deal with this issue, things are not going to get better anytime soon. I don't see it getting better no time soon, actually. But what do you guys think? So the link has been dropped. This will be a short show, guys, and thank you for the ones that tuned in. And I apologize once again for, being late. I got back from the office, but I wanted to talk about this topic of hybrystophilia. Glock Tavies, you funny top guy. But yeah, those men are very dangerous. So what do you guys want to add to the conversation? Ladies, have you been victims of hybrystophilia? Did you ladies have a love for bad boys in the past? And so, guys, you guys are in high school, Gen X or whatever. You guys remember a time. Coach, she not going to do that. Accountability of women is like kryptonite to Superman. Both run from. You're right. Many won't accept it. And I will share and more or less submit to some of the women. You can't be the best version of yourself until you're willing to look at the mirror, until you're willing to look at the issues that have caused you to be in the state that you're in now. And so you got to look at yourself. You got to be willing to look at yourself and how to change the trajectory of your future. If your future is on a downward slope, you got to be willing to do the shallow work and to look within yourself and say, I'm going to get better. But if you're not willing to look at yourself, then how can you more or less address those negative pathologies that have more or less been permeating in your head for a long time? So the link is dropped, guys. Would you guys like to add to the conversation, as I said several times earlier, about this very toxic topic of hybrystophilia? I want to ask you guys a question, if you guys had to guesstimate. What percentage of men in the ADOS community would you say exude qualities associated with hybrystophilia? Would you say is more than 5%, is more than 20%, or is it less than 20%? What percentage of men would you say exude hybrystophilia? Man, you funny, Igor. Turner, you funny. If a man is not a roughneck, so to say, does that make him a simp or just a decent man? Well, listen, a lot of simps are thugs. You know, all thugs are not necessarily masculine men. Some are, but not all. They all personify the image of power, but they're really just broken, toxic men. And they won't fight you. They'll use, you know, a GUN. So many simps sometimes can also be thugs. There have been men that are thugs, and you know, their women control them. They're men when they come down to other men, but they're very broken when they come down to other women. So, you know, bad boys can be, you know, simps too. I mean, thugs can be simps. But in general, they tend to personify or project toughness and masculinity. They tend to project that. So, thank you, Tim, for dropping the link. What do you ladies think about this conversation? Hybrystophilia. Guys, please share the content. This is going to be a short show on tonight. But I did want to tackle it as I was rushing back from the office. You know, I did the thumbnail a couple of days ago. And it's more or less in a reflection, or more or less a response to the shows that I did with Ted Santos. I'm talking about hybrystophilia. And he was talking about, you know, can addictions reduce wife readiness? Can addictions reduce wife readiness? So, ladies and gents, you guys came up. Let's have a conversation. Well, I'm going to shut this show down in a minute because this is a monologue, a dialogue, not a monologue. So the link has been dropped for a few minutes. Guys, how would you guys like to add to the conversation? Do one of you guys want to pop on and add to this conversation about the DSM-5 disorder called hybrystophilia that's part of paraphilias? And so how would you guys like to add to the conversation as well, the brothers? What do you think about this topic of hybrystophilia? Shout out to my man. Thank you, sir. CGLA, $10 super sticker. Thank you, brother. Cash App. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that donation. And Church Girl, ex-Church Girl, thank you, dear. I appreciate it. I really appreciate that, dear. Thank you for your $10 super sticker as well. Thank you, sweetie. I appreciate that. But ladies, you know, it's 20 that are watching. I know you guys got to get ready to go to work in the morning, and I'm going to shut the stream down in a minute. But before I shut it down, I would like to get some feedback on what you guys think about this topic, or this ongoing topic of hybrystophilia, and how it impacts the functioning of our communities. Because we talk about protection, ladies. Some of the ladies talk about they want a man to protect them. Some of the ladies talk about they want a man to, you know, hold them down. But if you've been impacted by hybrystophilia, then are you still suffering in silence? And do you still have a preoccupation or a love for bad boys? Men that are listening, do you think hybrystophilia is part of genetic predisposition? Or do you think it's part of social conditioning? Which one? And regardless if it's social conditioning or genetic predispositioning, it's still an issue that's more or less related or more or less tied to our community. When you look at the bad boys now, many of those bad boys are not productive members of society. Many of those men are either in prison, they're dead, they have a cesspool of children that are more or less miring in brokenness, and they don't add any clarity or value to the broader community. I would more or less argue that the majority of our men are good men. They're hardworking men. I also will argue that many are very invisible. Many good men are very invisible. Many don't even know about them. Many don't even talk about those brothers. And those brothers, many times, they suffer in silence because they feel like they're not adequate or they're not enough. And those are the dangers, guys, to some of our women that had a lot of fun dealing with bad boys in their younger years, because some of you ladies are dealing with the scars of being with bad boys. You're dealing with the scars of dealing with dusty men that more or less lied to you, got you, participated in your impregnation, or they left you broken, and you still struggle with that now as we continue to move forward. Shout out to my man, Chicago Will. I'm going to do this one for you, brother. I'm going to do this just for you, Chicago Will. I'm going to drop some fire for your mind, Chicago Will. How you doing, brother? Appreciate and shout out to you, because this is fire for your mind. And the topic is called hybrystophilia. Chicago Really, if you just popped in, it's called hybrystophilia, who is the love and the preoccupation for bad boys. Men that more or less violate, men that are dangerous, but a large percentage of our women love those type of men. They think they can mold them, remodify them, and help them become the better versions. But many times these men are very dangerous, they're very toxic, and they don't add any substance to the broader ADOS community. And so we got to have these conversations because mental illness, guys, is running rampant in the ADOS community. But because we don't believe in the power of healing and therapy, we tend to continue to exonerate toxicity. We continue to exonerate negativity, and we don't more or less exonerate the things that are necessary for long-term healthy outcomes. Many of you that are listening have been in relationships so long or been dealing with toxic bad men that when you get with a good man, you don't know how to treat them because you have been victims of hybrystophilia. Some of you, it's been unconscious issues. Some of you, it's been a conscious issue. Some of you consciously got with men that were abusive, but some of you did not know it until after you got into that relationship. And because he was good in bed, he blew your back out, then you became addicted to bad, toxic men because of that toxic middle finger between his legs. And so we got to have these conversations because we can't change until we talk about it. As Church Girl said, the born single men on my block have homes, right? No kids, work hard, and they're single. Right. You're right, ex-Church Girl. That happens. There's a lot of good brothers like that. They're responsible, but, many women don't want those men until after they had their fun. They've been, used up by toxic men, and then all of a sudden they want to hit a buzzer, a shot at the buzzer, and they say, I need a man or I deserve a man. But no, you don't deserve men like that. You don't deserve hard-working good men to put in the work, the sweat equity. And now these men are saying, what am I getting in return? Because once again, in fair exchange, guys, there is no robbery. There is no robbery in fair exchange. So what are these men, are those men getting in return for the work that they put in their formative years? When they went to the MTIs, when they went to college to become, tech executives, when they went to the Michigan States, the Michigans, the Dukes, the Howards, the Massachusetts, the UNC Chapel Hills, the Wake Forest University, they went to very elite schools. I went to the University of North Carolina, in a very elite school, a blue blood school. And I will tell you, matriculating through 3 degrees, law enforcement, AA in law enforcement, BSW, license in education, MSW, licensed therapist, it's extremely hard. Years of hard work. So what are those young men getting in return? Are they getting women that have been impacted by hybrystophilia? Guys, I don't know what's going on. Some of y'all say my mic is too high. Some say it's too low. I don't know what the hell's going on with this thing, man. So I don't know. I apologize. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But as long as you guys can hear me, because I was on the lead attorney and, he couldn't hear me. So I appreciate it, Hot Boy Rod 89. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, the link has been dropped, guys. The last couple of minutes, let's have a conversation. What do you think about this topic of hybrystophilia? You guys are watching, but, you're texting. But let's have a dialogue. Let's have a psychic soul train. Tim Howard has dropped the link. I got to get a phone number so you guys can call in as well if you don't want to cam up. But let's have a conversation about this burgeoning topic, because could it be argued that Raekwon and Man are the byproducts of brokenness themselves? Could it be argued that some of our young ladies, as I said earlier, love these boys, men, because they were sexually abused? They never had fathers to speak life into them. And they love the excitement of toxic peen. They love the excitement of toxic men because these men project the illusion of power, not because they're powerful, but they project the illusion of power. Tim Hart said, don't forget University of Texas, Austin. Right. Yeah, UT is a very upscale school, brother. You're right. I totally agree with it. UT is one of those higher echelon schools as well. I totally agree. Rejection equals redirection. Right, cool, gent. And Top Gun says that they have been... Man, you funny. You guys are funny, man. But y'all guys, come on, long. I mean, what? Yeah, there we go. There we go. We got Mr. Turner. We got one. All right, Mr. Turner, how you doing, brother? How you doing, sir? I finally got one. I don't know why. Almost 30 minutes, I've been asking folks to come in there to have a conversation. I want to talk about this topic. What do you think about the topic of hybrystophilia, Mr. Turner? And thank you, brother, for the $20 super chat. I appreciate that, brother. Now, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Man, this is a very, very good topic. And you post a lot of questions, so let me see if I can get through most of them. How you mentioned something about how many people approximately do we believe are actual, like you said, a hybristophiliacs, like
right. They're the spawns of hybristophilia.
So you're talking about the, in this case, the males that actually commit the crimes? Or
Yes, sir. Right. What percentage of men in the ADOS community, Mr. Turner, would you say are more or less exhibits or more or less arbiters of hybristophilia, in your opinion?
I would think somewhat of a small percentage, maybe 10, no more than maybe 15%. It's not a whole lot of, I'm gonna speak on the guys. Yeah, it can be women too as well. I understand that, but I would have to say maybe 10 to 15 percentage out of 100. I think it's pretty low as to how many people are actually really doing something like that. Because I mean, many of us, well, now I'm included. I mean, anyway.
Go ahead, brother.
So yeah, many of us really don't have the heart to do, crime and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. And then, a lot of us weren't really brought up that way. We're brought up as, as many people call us squares or whatever. And, that's just not, a part of them. Now, do a lot of, us know those type of people? I would have to say, yeah, that's a pretty big percentage.
Right.
But that's something a little different, but I think it's 10% on that.
Right.
But, going on and I mentioned some of the reasons as to why I think some of the ladies might be attracted to a man like that. A lot of it I think centers around self-esteem, what they deem to be their definition of how a man actually looks or something like that, which of course is a kind of a distorted, well, I won't say this kind of a distorted, but a distorted view. Right. Because they've never really seen it. And so when they see that and then they mix it, depending on how old you are, and they mix it with that thrill of excitement and stuff like that, they figure, well, this is the way life is supposed to be.
Right.
Now, like you've mentioned also too, as they get older and, I'm gonna say a little bit settled and that kind of thing, then they realize truly what it is, and that is, no, I don't really want that kind of guy because he's unstable, because he can't take care of business, because he's emotionally either unavailable or can't control his emotions and stuff like that. Some women, they long for a pit bull, somebody who they want to get with this person, and yet they think that somehow they can control them.
Right.
They get with them and they say, okay, well, in other words, they want this guy to be a thug, or they want this guy to be, cold-blooded and hard, except with them, with the ladies.
Right.
And then then a lot of ladies want the opportunity or the ability to be able to turn it on and turn it off, like a pit bull.
Right.
Excitement. It's many different things, man. Let's see. What were some of your other questions, brother? I'm sorry.
Well, I've said so many. I was just talking about another question that I posed, Mr. Turner, is this. Women that have been more or less been impacted by men that personify traits of hybristophilia, as it tends to correlate with bad boys or thugs, are those women more or less in a state to be suitable wives for the men that have had limited experience and some will argue definitely not men that are virgins, because with extending research, it's more or less been posited that a large portion of our men that are under a large percentage of them are actually virgins. I think this is the first time in U.S. history. There's many reasons. Some say that they're socially awkward. I don't think that's all of it. That might be a small percentage.
Right.
But I think a lot of it because they're just average guys. And the average guys are never enough. They're the squares. They're the boring guys. Mm-hmm. And so what do you think about that, in your opinion?
Do I think so? In essence, do I believe that they can be, I'm going to say, rehabilitated to say, okay, now when they want a nice guy? I think it's extremely, extremely, extremely difficult at best that they can do that. I'm going to basically say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is because once, so many people saying, once you have that imprint, once you have that taste of how, what a lot of ladies call exciting life can be like, everything is on the edge. There's, the guy just came back from a shootout, or she was in a shootout with the guy, or something happened where, the guy's got to get down and she finds that exciting and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden she's got to turn all that off and then go to this boring guy. He's working whatever job he's got, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or whatever. And he eats dinner. He's talking about his day. She has really nothing to talk about, so to speak. And now she's bored.
Right.
And so to now to not be able to go back to that type of life is something that, I believe that, many women who've experienced that, it's hard for them to turn that off and say, I'm just gonna stick with this nice guy and I'm gonna make it work.
Right.
They can front like they want to make it work, but deep down inside, and even sexually, okay, a lot of nice guys now, nice guys, I think honestly can be trained or talked to on how to please a woman sexually, because I think that's just a matter of communication. But unfortunately, a lot of ladies think that that many men are supposed to already know this stuff.
Right.
When the truth of the matter is that everybody's individual. Everybody doesn't want everything the same way. But now they're even their imagination, before they even have the sexual portion of it, they know that it's gonna be boring. They know that the guy is not gonna pull their hair, smack their butt, or turn them over, and some women even like to be called names and stuff like that.
Right.
It's all about the experience that you create in the bedroom. Is the point. I won't get too graphic.
Right. I understand. I understand. Let's go back in time. You hail from, I believe, the state of Illinois, correct?
Lived in New York for 20 years and then came to Chicago. Yes.
So I would say that you are a personification. You got a little edge to you, but you definitely got some edge. But we ain't gonna go into that. You're no good guy. You're the Incredible Hulk. You just don't know it.
I'm a good guy.
But let's talk about your experiences of seeing guys, Mr. Turner.
Yeah.
When you grew up in New York and then transversing to New York, Chicago.
All right.
A lot of those guys that were bad boys. Were they true gangsters? Were they true bad boys, or were they more or less fakers, in your opinion?
No. The guys I used to know, they true. And to be perfectly honest with you, most of the guys that I used to hang out with, I've gone to their funerals. And most of them, it's only 2 guys that I know that I left. The rest of them are in the ground. So they were true. I'll put it like that. They didn't play, and that's how it was. But one other thing I want to touch on also, when we talk about the whole thug culture and that kind of thing, look, it didn't just start in the 90s. It didn't just start in the 80s. It didn't just start in the 70s. Thug culture has always been around.
I agree with that. It's always been around, right?
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, I don't think it's ever gonna go anywhere. I really don't. It may go underground a little bit. It may, in some people's eyes died out a little bit. But trust me, anybody who wants that type of life will be associated with it. They're gonna find it, and it's not gonna go anywhere. Um, Now, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, or unfortunately, now a lot of them, who are part of that life, they make the good music. You know, uh, uh, Bone Thugs and Harmony, KRS-One, was homeless a lot of times back in my day. Public Enemy, be truthful, truth to be told, they weren't nobody to be playing with either.
Right.
Eric B and Rakim, no doubt, he didn't play no games. Um, Run DMC when Run and Daryl were back in the back on the streets, they did their thing. LL wasn't with the thug culture, the gang culture, but he hung around them. So you know they do have something to contribute and that kind of thing. But again, as far as the stability and stuff like that, it's short lived on that. They go and play, they go and come as they please. They wake up whenever they want to, that kind of thing. So it's always going to be around.
I agree with you. There's nothing new under the sun, but let's not, it would be remiss of me to say, Mr. Turner, when you think about the evolution of, the bad boy, you begin to see it personified more in the 90s, in my opinion. I would say in the late 80s, early 90s, with the exoneration of gang culture, also of what I call gangster rap. It seemed like it was happening in the 80s, but after the 90s, when gangster rap was precipitating, it got a lot worse, with NWA and a lot of different groups. And now it seemed like it's taken to a whole nother level. Listen, there's nothing new under the sun, but we would be remiss to say that it was not, bad boys were not celebrated, and it was not seen as anything good like it is now. Just like tattoos, there was a time people that had excessive tattoos were seen as pariahs as well.
Right.
But now, as ex-church girl says, she's correct. Toxic is the new normal. Up is down, down is up. And that's a sign of a very decadent society that more or less exonerates, hedonistic and very negative behavior. And now we're seeing the recompense of this bad and very nefarious behavior as well. Because let's go back also, Mr. Turner, talking about single parent homes. It was deemed a pandemic back in the 70s where 26% of children were born in single parent homes. That was back in the 70s. And that was a sign that we were beginning to go after the free love movement into a very negative direction. But now it's damn near doubled that. Right. And you got almost 80% of children are born in single parent homes.
Yes.
What does that say about our society? You got 59% of those men, according to some studies, and I got to get the research on it, but I've heard, some say, I'm going to be honest about it, that they don't have kids, they're childless, they're hardworking men, they're good men. Mm-hmm. But those men are not good enough. And so I agree with you. When you think about the imprint, you think about, the bad boy imprint, let's go and take it to another level with Jada Pinkett Smith and Tupac Shakur. She's still dealing with the ghost of Tupac.
That's right.
So your points are range true. I think women that have been with men like that, even though they might get with a good guy, because, we're not saying that good guys can't lay it down in the bedroom as well.
Right.
But the assumption many times will assume that, the thug has he got a nice piece of wood and, her body's used to that. So she can't go back to this dealing with average. Some will tell you straight up, if you don't have a certain amount, then, you can't even get with me. But that's not an indictment on an average man. It's an indictment on her being promiscuous. What's your take on that?
Well, you brought up a lot here. So, again, going back to, the whole, thugging. Yeah, for one thing, I definitely agree with you in regard to, her wanting, a man that is not afraid to lay it down to her, to talk to her like a normal person. The normal good guy won't do that. A lot of them will kowtow and do, what she says. I mean, the truth of it is that, I was brought up you always protect your women. You don't talk down to them. You don't do this, that, and the other. And no, and I think that's right to a degree. But when it comes to, uh, her, disrespecting you or trying to talk to you any kind of way, look, you gotta tell her what it is, and don't hold back. And like you say, stand on your principles, and don't count out, because a women's nature. Look, if you let it go one time, she's gonna try you again, and she's gonna try you again and again and again until she no longer respects you at all. And then guess what? She's going on to somebody else who she feel will put her in her place.
No doubt. I totally agree, because women only respect power and strength. And that's why, guys, and that's why, ladies, I talked about the illusion of power. Women tend to like taller men like myself because it's the illusion of power. But I mean, no, but this whole time I'm about to give you props, bro. I'm about to give you props.
Okay.
But James Turner might be a hobbit. He might be 5'8", but he might can knock me out. So it's not always about height, because sometimes shorter men or average height men are very masculine men as well.
Right.
But it's the illusion of power, and so thugs and bad boys give off the illusion. That illusion of power many times get a lot of our women into a lot of trouble. And once they get into that trouble, they're never the same again, because they're dealing with their imprint. Like I said, a man can be imprinted through his mind, but she is imprinted by the man through his phallus. And it can become very deleterious and very dangerous if she does not realize that and deal with it in a positive way. When you think about the rise of Raekwon and Man, they're this iconic names, Raekwon and Man, also Shermite and Day Day, Shermite, Day Day, and them.
I don't know where Shermite came from, but okay. I'll roll.
Why do you feel like so many of our women love those types of men in your opinion?
Man, I'm telling you, it's just about the whole excitement. They look at them as, yes, they do exude a certain amount of power in their eyes, where, compared to this guy who they think is nice or simp or whatever the case may be. He's definitely got the edge on him. Mm-hmm. They look at again, and if this guy comes back and he's got a little blood on him and stuff like that, and then he comes over to her and say, "Hey, babe, I need for you to help patch me up because I got out this, I just was in this shootout." And she's, "Oh my God, this was so exciting. Here, let me take care of you." And and then in the process, it's a little bit of that, reform or whatever. It going back to the whole now Raekwon, Day Day, and who Shermite. Anyway, a lot of them nowadays, Kosha, I believe they wannabes. I don't think they really that look, they no. I think that they wannabes. I think that they going around scared, because the truth of the matter is they want to take a gun because they're scared to take a butt whooping.
Right.
They don't want to box. They're
posers. They're posers.
Right. They don't, they don't want to, fight head up. They don't want to get in the dirt and get down like that. Mm-hmm. And, and a lot of it has to do with, them thinking more with their emotion than, where real men, hey, we scrap it out and then afterwards it's cool.
Right.
But now you want to, you want to take it to the next level, and, you want to bust nines and stuff like that. And then ain't no coming back from that, mm-hmm. And so a lot of them, I think they just want to be. They talk hard, they act hard a little bit, but you press them, they not gonna do nothing. They not gonna do nothing. And think about it though, Coach. Real guys like that, they don't want to fight, man. They, all of a lot of guys that I know, they just want to trip out, watch their kids grow up.
Right.
Hang out at some cookouts, roll around in their cars, grab their girls, go somewhere nice, and just relax. That type of stuff is old.
Right. It does get old, and it wears on your psyche over time. It can be very dangerous because many are going by the way of the grave.
Yeah.
With that bad boy culture. You know, you used to roll with them kind of guys, man. And thank God for grace that you are alive.
Not me. That wasn't me. I just knew about them, you know.
You were the intellectual thug. I don't have a problem with you. But yeah. So this is a very powerful conversation, hybrystophilia. Do you think you've ever dated any women, James, that were more or less byproduct of hybrystophilia, in your opinion?
Oh, that love bad guys.
Right.
You know,
were imprinted. And how was it? The relationship? How was the relationship?
it was cool until you know they figured out that I wasn't that, you know, that type of guy. What I mean, that type of guy, one that was going, you know, call them all kind of B's and, you know, H's and stuff like that, and, you know, talk to them down like stuff. You know, I'm the kind of guy. Look, if you're not with me, I'll just leave you cold. You won't ever hear from me again. But they wanted that. They wanted to bring out that edge. They wanted to see me get hyped, so they do, you know, some silly stuff at times, and I know it is, and then I just, you know what, take a hike, you know, type thing. So, you know, when it comes, because they just, a lot of them just want that excitement, and when they found out about me, then I was boring,
right?
And so it's time for them to move around, and okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me. They never, you know, did anything like push me to something like that. I never really got to that point. Not when it comes to dealing with the ladies. No.
Right. The decadence that you see now, do you see it dissipating in the future, or is this a greater issue in the broader United States, in your opinion?
Oh, brother, in the future, it really depends on what you mean by future. At my age, honestly, I don't think I'm gonna live to see it.
Right, I agree.
I don't think I'm gonna live to see that. I think I think things are gonna turn around because, you know, I serve a God that's that awesome, but it's gonna take. I'm gonna say honestly, it's gonna take at least 2, possibly 3 generations.
I totally agree. Yes, sir. Right.
It's not gonna be no one thing. Why? Because you know, you see now how a lot of the single mothers and absentee dads, they're still there now. I mean, the next generation culture is still coming up.
Right.
You know, there was a couple things that I saw with Kevin Samuels, and he was, you know, interviewing this young lady about, you know, how, and one of the questions that he asked was, how are you going to raise, you know, your child, and based upon her thinking, and her thinking was warped. And this child is now 12. It's a boy. And so the new generation's coming up. A lot of them are still, you know, with single parents. They're going to become men. A lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are going to be soft. And what I mean by that is they're not going to know how to make a decision. They're going to be moody. They you know, the indecisive. And I'm talking about, you know, they're going to be looking for their ladies to say, okay, what do you want to do? Or how should we do this? Because they're used to getting that from their mom, who told them what to do and how to do things, that kind of stuff. But they were never told how to do it for themselves and how to think for themselves and be a leader. They always want to, you know, they've only been taught to follow, because ladies are not natural leaders. I won't say they're not leaders, but they're not natural leaders in that way. How can they raise a man truly, how to, you know, on how to be a true man into a true husband and stuff like that? Can't do it. You need the presence of other guys, and unfortunately, that time is going to be not until many of them get grown or damn near grown before they even get that type of knowledge, and then at that point, it's too late, Pastor. It's too late, Culture. So, you know, when I think about that, man, I'm talking at least another 2, definitely 2, maybe 3 generations before we even begin to see.
I agree with you, because this problem didn't start overnight. This evolution of negativity and toxicity has been bubbling for the last 50 years, I would say, 30 to 40 to 50 years.
Yeah.
The ladies that are listening, would like for you guys to pop in for a few minutes, and I'm going to end this stream. Mr. Turner has added a lot of good information on this stream. But to the ladies that are listening, how would you like to add to this conversation? You know, you ladies are always quiet. We're not going to bite you. Mr. Turner, he's a gentle giant like myself, you know, well, until you make us mad, but let me stop. But, yeah, till I start singing. But ladies, how would you like to add clarity to the topic of hybrystophilia? And in the meantime, shout out to my man Greg for the $5 super sticker. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that donation. But Greg said that after this applause go down, he said, I think I'd rather take my chances and go to either Central America or South America. Their culture is more up my alley. And I respect that, brother.
Greg, you the man.
I respect any man for exercising their options to do what's best for them. Because many men feel, Mr. Turner, that you got to go do so much to get to that uncovered gem that's not worth your time or your effort. They feel like you got to go do the sex pool of toxicity, almost like going to a bargain rack to find a quality woman. So a lot of men are saying, you know, what is the benefit if I got to go do so much just to get to a high quality woman?
Yeah.
And so, you know, hey, Greg, brother, I salute you. If you feel like abroad is best for you, if you can't find your uncovered gem here, you have to play the odds. The odds say that women universally are the same. Women universally are the same. Women universally are the same. I've quoted that 3 times. If you're a simp here in America, you're going to be a simp abroad. But here's the caveat. Women abroad many times are raised in traditional patriarchal cultures, and why some of the remnants of feminism is seeping into those broader cultures and societies. They are by and large still more heteronormative and very patriarchal, where the women have been trained to honor and respect their men, especially in countries like Colombia and some of the broader parts of Brazil, and some of the African countries where you have a lot of Afro-Latin women. You tend to have that personification a lot more. So any man that feels like he can't find his uncovered gem here in the contextual framework of America, I salute you, sir, for utilizing your power as a man to more or less find your wife in another country, because you are the prize catcher. You determine if she's wife ready or wife worthy. She doesn't determine that. She can be a wife in her head. She can be the prize in her head. But unless you give her that high honor of a wife in the ring, then it means nothing. She must come into the relationship willing to serve you as her man. And if she serves you as her man, then you're going to turn around and serve her, protect her, and if necessary, give your life for the woman that you love. But it comes with a price. Many, Mr. Turner, want it for nothing. They just think by default they deserve. Many say, I deserve, but no, you don't deserve. Because what have you done to deserve the ring? You have to earn it. It's not yours by default. Right. It's not yours by default because you have a vagina. You have to earn that. Just like a man got to earn your respect as a woman to more or less for you to follow him and be led by him. And many times good men are saying that they have all those accoutrements, but it's still not enough. It's still not enough. And a lot of men are getting frustrated. So ladies, pop in. Pop in, ex-church girl. You seem like you're a very bright woman. Pop in, Alisa Della Rosario. You ladies always add a lot of good conversation. And also James Turner, of course, you know, he's the scale balancer. But the link has been dropped. Ladies, how would you like to ask me and Mr. Turner a question on this very salient topic concerning the topic of hybrystophilia, which is a paraphilia. It's in the DSM-5 as it relates to the love of abusive men, because para means aligned and philia means love, like philia in the languages of love, eros, philia, agape. So those different types of love, there are several types of love, and many love bad boys. So ladies, pop in. I'd like to hear some of the ladies add clarity to the discussion with me and Mr. Turner. And to the 33 that are watching, if you don't have anything to share or give as it relates to donations, share the content. Sharing the content helps me grow as a content provider, but also as a therapist, and also as a burgeoning content curator. Share the content. Once again, I would like to thank everyone that is given. Shout out to James Turner. He is the sponsor of this stream. And, like I said, guys, so he said no sound. Can you hear me, Mr. Turner?
I can hear you, brother.
Okay, CGLA said no sound, so I don't know. If you guys can hear me, hit 1. Mr. Turner said he can hear me, but CJLA said no sound. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me in this very timely and very poignant conversation? Can you guys hear me? Mr. Turner said he can hear me, okay?
Can GCLA hear me?
Can GCLA, can you hear Mr. Turner? Can you hear him? Can you guys hear Mr. Turner? If you guys can hear Mr. Turner, please hear. Ex-church girl said it might be his audience. She might be talking about you. Oh, he said it was his advice. Okay, no doubt, CJ. Okay, brother, no problem. Thank you, CJ, GCLA. Thank you, brother. Thank you once again for the $10 cash app. You have been so kind and gracious in supporting these streams. And listen, I want to thank everybody, to the men and the women that constantly give. You guys are awesome. This is a small YouTube channel, but I got plans for it to be as big as some of the bigger names in these spaces, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of hard work, and you got to more or less know how to get into the algorithm. It's a lot of work being a content creator. It's a lot of work. You know, I was rushing from the offices to get this show off because I wanted to give you guys some good quality content. But to the women that are listening, how would you ladies like to add to this discussion? Because Mr. Turner's given some very good points, and we're going to pop off in a minute because I have to go to bed and get ready for the rest of the week. But how would you ladies like to add to this topic? Some of the men that are listening, how would you guys like to help add to this conversation with me and Mr. Turner? And so, Mr. Turner, while they are waiting to get their thoughts together, because I know some of the women are going to be brave to pop on.
No, they won't. They won't do it. Ex-church girl won't pop on because she really doesn't want us to know why she's called the ex-church girl. Yeah, I know she okay. I know she's got a little edge to her too.
She got a little edge to her now.
She got a little edge too. I know it.
well, ex-church girl, thank you, dear, for that $10 super sticker. Thank you, ma'am. But yeah, yeah, you know. She said, "Be nice, you funny." We're gonna be nice. Ex-church girl, pop in there. We would love to hear your points of view on this topic of hybrystophilia. But when you think about the kaleidoscope of dating, Mr. Turner, and when you look at it from a panoramic view, what do you see that's most challenging and depressing about this topic, about, you know, relationships? That she's from Chicago.
Oh, okay. The biggest thing is just you know, attitude, as far as, you know, how, you know, many women, you know, here is particularly black women look at black men nowadays. They don't look at us as people. A lot of times they don't talk to us like, you know, like we're people, but yet a lot of them want to say that we're their men.
Right.
I don't get that. How do you talk down or disrespect something that, you know, that's yours, you know? And so you know, everybody wants to be a boss and nobody wants to follow, you know. It's so many things, culture, but I will say this.
Hold tight. I don't know who
Okay.
this is. LCN. Can you unmute yourself, please? Can you pop in? Let me see your face for a minute, real quick. I know Mr. Turner personally.
Okay, excuse me. My camera's not working, so it's like,
Your camera's not working?
yeah, camera's not working right now.
Okay, how would you like to answer this conversation, sir?
Well, I'm a 20-year-old black guy, if that helps.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But from what the discussion, the question is, why is dating like this with the type of men, the bad boys in some sort?
Right. We're talking about a topic called hybrystophilia, the love for bad boys. How would you like to answer the conversation?
Okay. Well, I also think that it has to do with also with the media, what we're shown in the media. Perfect example, like shows like Power and stuff like that, that really takes a toll on the image of the black man, and especially with maybe somewhat of like dysfunctional households or like abuse. And because some women have been through maybe abusive relationships, or maybe the men around them were abusive, they've gotten used to that type of experience, which led them into, you know, dating certain men with messed up qualities. Because some women, when they'll maybe date a guy who's a so-called quote unquote good man, they don't believe they deserve that because of their past experiences, or it's like some women just feel uncomfortable with peace. They start to question everything, like, okay, do I deserve this? Is this right? I don't really, I don't. This doesn't usually happen all the time. So, but when they usually go for the guy who's usually abusive, they believe that in their mind. Okay, I deserve this. This is right. This is what I'm used to. So
Yes.
there's this
Yes.
attraction to that. Get attraction to what's attraction to the familiar instead of the unfamiliar.
Right. Almost like the Stockholm syndrome.
Exactly. Exactly.
Almost like the Stockholm syndrome, and you see it happen a lot. Now, young man, you say you're in your 20s, correct?
I am 20.
Oh, you're a baby. And so when you think about what you see in this current negative culture, it appears that good guys like yourself many times are seen as boring. You guys work hard. What is a dating kaleidoscope like for you, young man? When you think about dating and also the topic of women liking abusive men, what is the dating kaleidoscope like for yourself?
Well, it's it's weird in the sense where it's like, because I used to go to high school as well, and you'd see it all the time where like you treat girls right, but it was always usually the guys who treated them like absolute dog shit who always got them.
Watch your
And
language, man. Watch your language. But go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, my apologies, my apologies.
You okay, bro? Go
And
ahead.
they would treat the girls like absolute crap. And you as a guy, you'd question, okay, why is it like that? But I don't usually think it's so much about them being a bad boy, but so much about them putting them on the back burner. The fact that the quote unquote bad guys don't care as much. The fact that the quote unquote bad guys, they're focused on something. Like perfect example with, some of them thug dudes and what they do. It's not so much about the illegal activities that's so much I believe that attracts them. It's more of the I'm on my purpose and I'm not gonna let anything get in the way of my purpose. I believe, a lot of women have this idea that because a man is a good guy, he's a weak man. No, it's not that. It's just that this quote unquote good guy, he is more preserved and is in control of his quote unquote dark side, if you will. It's
Right.
like the saying goes, you'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, you know? And the good man, he has his dark side on control. He has it in um in a box caged up. But while the thug dude, he's just overly emotional like the woman. So in a way, it's like her dealing with her homegirl in a way. He's
Right.
overly emotional. He's all over the place. He has no type of emotional intelligence. But the good guy, he has some type of emotional intelligence. He knows how to talk things through or even walk away. And some women, they can't deal with that because their whole personality was pulled off from a Love and Hip Hop episode and all the toxicity that they've seen and witnessed. So when it comes on to dating, it's would I say it's crazy, crazy? No, I wouldn't say it's crazy, but um it's somewhat abnormal, if you will. Especially when you go on TikTok and you see the type of trends that kind of put into place and what type of men women are attracted to. So
Excellent. That's excellent. That's excellent. Do you have hope as a young man in this current cesspool called America? Do you have hope? Or do you only see a manifestation of the worst getting even worse?
well, I'm in Canada, so it's different, a little different here. But at the same time, from what I've seen from videos and what's going on in America as well, I truly believe, from the looks of it, marriage is gonna get beyond it. It's gonna cease to exist.
Right.
I truly believe, a lot of relationships will cease to exist. I believe we're gonna be in more so of a hookup culture than we'll be in a marriage culture because it's gotten to a point where um like as you can see nowadays, like a marriage doesn't really benefit a man as much. I'm not against marriage. Deep down, I eventually I would like to get married one day, not through the system, mind you, but I still want to get married and have children one day. But from what's going on, a lot of men are really having this mindset of, okay, I can get what I want from a woman without having the need to marry her. So why marry her in the first place? I'm not saying now as a man you should go out there and bump and dump women and do those things to women. However, at the same time, a lot of men are not seeing the benefits in marriage. A lot of men are starting to notice that a lot of girls have this hot girl summer mindset when they're not trying to build a family, they're not trying to build
Right.
a relationship. The only time they're really trying to build a relationship is when they're like in their like 30s and 40s and 50s. And so it's like the value of marriage and the value of a relationship is ceasing to exist. It's more so of let's just hook up and that's it.
No, I totally agree with you, man. And my heart goes out to you because I would say to me and Mr. Turner, we remember a time where we at least had a semblance of normalcy as it relates to healthy relationships. But it appears that that time that we once had is beginning to dissolve. It's getting harder for men to find quality gems. And let me ask you a question. I'm going to start with Mr. Turner, and then we're going to end this stream. I would like for the women to pop up, but I guess they're not going to. What percentage of women would you say, Mr. Turner, are wife ready and wife worthy? Some said less than 20%. What would you say, real quick?
5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. What would you say, Logan CN? What would you say, brother?
Oh, dang, that's a very good question. Less than 5 to 10%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I truly believe so, especially with the heavy influence with like the music and everything like that. It's not what you don't want to generalize every woman, but at the same time, it's like you really have to just take into consideration what's going on in the media. And how many female influencers do you hear trying to tell young girls to advocate to get married and be a wife? You see
Right.
more of girls teaching how to become an OnlyFans model, how to become a stripper, like these things in a couple years from now, even though it is like this, it's not even going to be shocking at this point.
Right.
Like, it's not going to be shocking. You're going to see more OnlyFans models, more strippers, all these type of S work, all those type of things going on. So there's plenty of women to sleep with, but very few of them are actually deserving of being a wife.
Right. No, that is very true, man. And that's why I tell young men like yourself, great men like Mr. Turner, exercise your options. I've been married for 26 years. It's rare, but God forbid if I was a single man again, I probably would exercise my options to travel abroad if I couldn't find my woman here. And I would say that's probably even worse now because I'm from the old school, and old school masculine men are actually seen as pariahs as well. They don't like masculine men. They want what some call Mitches. I'll let you guys use your imagination on that. My man Cool Gent said he think it's less than 2%. That's sad, man. James Turner said under 5. And it's unfortunate because there are some women that are uncovered gems that are looking for good men. But I guess a lot of guys saying, does the end justify the means? Because a man that don't have any kids, what is he getting in return if a large quotient and percentage of our women have kids, not only by maybe one or two guys, but by multiple men? Some have kids by multiple men. And so what is the benefit for those men moving forward? In less than 5 minutes, I'd like for one of the ladies to pop on, but if you guys don't, I'm going to start with Mr. Turner. What did you get from this conversation, brother, and why was the topic of hybrystophilia so relevant, in your opinion, in less than 2 minutes?
Yeah, first of all, I had never heard of the term. But I mean, the definition, yes, I've heard of, but the term I actually have never had.
Right.
And again, I'm hoping that a lot of the ladies who are hopefully are listening will begin to kind of dab into their to their pathologies if they are to a point where they want to they prefer bad boys, have been to that, and find that the nicer guys, if you will, are boring. Tap into that and find out why that is, and is it something in your psyche, whatever it is, and begin to take a look at that. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I'm getting out of it. It's true. The bad boy culture is not going anywhere. However, if that's something that you're attracted to, begin to discover why you're attracted to that, and begin to really dab into that, and to start to talk to someone, and begin to understand that better. Coach, I think you're on mute.
That's a very good point. Ex-church girl, how you doing, young lady? Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, how are you all?
How you doing, ma'am? How would you like to add to this very timely conversation about hybrystophilia, but also about the dawning nature of why so many men feel like the quality of women have become very irrelevant as we live in these very trying times. How would you like to add to the conversation?
Wait, can you repeat the question again, please? Sorry, I sound like Tasha Kane.
You're funny.
Wow.
So how would you like to add to the conversation about hybrystophilia and why so many men feel hopeless as it relates to quality women in this current cesspool called America?
Well, to be honest, they should feel a little hopeless. Don't give up, but they should feel a little hopeless because it has a lot to do with self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, and it's not the external stuff like wearing makeup, doing this. People too focus on the external. They're not focusing on getting the help they need to flourish in life. They're just surviving. They're not thriving. And the men now, I mean, they're up against, and I see why they're so pessimistic about women, because women are not really not necessarily feeding them, but giving them anything to be hopeful about as far as relationships. I mean, we're all about ourselves. We're all about getting what we can from a man.
Right.
We're all about the coins. We're all about leveling up. And people don't even really know what is this level up crap? Like, what is all this? It doesn't make any sense, because the way I'm looking at it, they're only talking about putting on makeup and hair and clothes. That's not leveling up. So I really feel for the guys now. I'm a mature woman, so the guys now, back in my day, they didn't have it this hard.
When did you graduate, if I may ask? Are you Gen X?
I graduated from high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, how dare you ask me that? I graduated in 1983 from Crane High School. I'm a transplant to Georgia now. I'm from originally
83, really? You don't look that old.
Thank you.
Class 84.
Oh, okay.
Right. Class. So Turner, are you Gen X or a Boomer?
No doubt Gen X.
She should be Gen X too, right?
I don't even know all these terms yet. What am I, Gen X or?
I think you're a cusper.
Yeah, I think baby boomers, I think is 81, 82 or something like that. I think. I don't know.
Right. So when you think about women being preoccupied with bad boys, do you think there's any redeeming value once they've been imprinted by these, toxic men? Do you think they can redeem themselves, or you think once they get that itch or that touch by a man that really took their sexuality to another level, it's really no turning back with an average guy? What's your take on that?
Well, to be honest, I didn't want to say anything in the chat, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite. That's part of the reason why I'm the ex-church girl.
I appreciate your honesty, right.
But I was one of these women. I've been a nurse for 30 plus years, LPN. And my thing was that I would accept a man, coming into my life. He's a bad boy. To be honest, I was one of those women that was abused.
Right. I respect that. Yes,
so
ma'am.
I went through that, and the last situation, I almost had my left eye busted out. Like, it was that bad. I had been a half meter closer, because self-esteem, not having a father in the house, but I accept full accountability for my own actions now.
Yes, ma'am. Right.
I went through counseling. I accept 100% responsibility for my role in letting the bad boy in my life. He didn't have a job. He was on drugs. It was like I was drawing them back to back. Now, you can reform, but you have to go through counseling, because after a while you start saying, all men are dogs, all men are bad. And that's not true at all. That's not true.
Right.
But just your perception, because that's what you've experienced. But it doesn't make it the reality. It's what you perceive, but it's not really reality.
Right. Do you think once a woman has been sexually handled by a bad boy, quote unquote, do you think she can go back to an average guy in that department? Or you think once that part of her body has been awakened, it's hard for her to go back to an average guy?
That's another thing. It's all about perception. Half the time you think you got more than you got, but it really wasn't that at all. It really wasn't all that.
Okay.
Your mind, you see how that's why your mind can play tricks on you, because it wasn't all that.
Gotcha. Yes, ma'am. Right.
So that's all you had at the time. So you're like, oh yeah, he's all that, and I can't give him up. But he busts your eye out, then you're ready to call the cops on him and have him arrested. It really wasn't all that. I mean, that's a part of self-esteem, to be honest.
So you're saying that the compilation or the intercourse with a bad guy is not necessarily all that fulfilling?
It wasn't, no.
Okay.
No. I mean, some women probably feel like it is because, then they drag you through the mud and you keep going back and forth to them. But I think it takes, and I hate to say this, but if you get attacked one good time by a bad boy, and hopefully you come out alive, and you're not going back to that.
Let me ask you a question, ex-church girl. You have a very unique name. I grew up Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal holiness. We won't get too much into that. We'll talk about that at some point. But what percentage of, when you look back in time, our generation, would you say you see more of this debauchery now, or you saw it the same equally back in the 80s? I think it's more now. I think it's gotten way worse compared to when you and I were kids growing up. What's your take on that?
I agree. I believe it's way worse now because it's just, I think I did put it in I don't know if I put it in the comment or I deleted it, but it's out of control because all of these behaviors have become normal. Like when I was in abusive relationships and I ended up in, the last one was my third one, but that came from me not taking accountability for the way my life was running. So I'm not blaming people for the way they behave. I just think they need to get help because all these toxic behaviors are not normal. They're abnormal. But when you're in it, it's normal. It's okay.
It's normal. Right. I totally agree. Dysfunction is the new normal now. We talk about people getting help. We talk about people trying to change from their pernicious ways. But many times it's minimized. And when I hear young men like LCN and Mr. Turner talking about the darkness that's more or less emerging in this culture, it gives for a level of concern if we're going to get a vibrant community back intact. And I don't see it in this lifetime. It's only getting worse, in my opinion. Do you think, in your opinion, ex-church girls, that many women have a preoccupation for bad boys because of the lack of fathers, based on what you've seen from anecdotal experience?
Absolutely. I think I would say probably over half of it has to do with not having a father in the home. Because you feel like you're going to help this person, you're going to change this person, you're going to make him a better man. No woman can ever make a man a better man. He has to have his own mindset to do that for himself.
I totally agree. And I think that's what happens when you have the lack of fathers in the home as well. We need families, but a lot of people are optimistic. I'm an optimist as well, but I'm more realistic. The Leo in me is optimistic, but I'm also very realistic about the current social condition that we have. What would you like to add to, what did you get out of this conversation, and how did it add value to your life, ex-church girl?
How did the conversation add value?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it just awakened me to the fact that it's worse now than it was when I was back in the day dealing with it. I just think people, I was against getting counseling, and I mean, I'm putting it out there now. I was against getting counseling before because there was a stigma attached to it.
Right.
And I just think people need to really put it out there that it's okay, it's normal to get help. There are some situations that you have to deal with that if you don't, what's that saying? If you don't deal with the situation, it'll deal with you. You've got to get help. And I'm so glad that this channel is available for people. Right. And just try to get that stigma off of counseling, because unless these people are willing to go in and get help, nothing's going to change. It's just going to get worse.
No, I totally agree. And it appears that it is getting worse. There was a time when, the black community was the pillar for dealing with mental issues. You had Big Mama, you had the community, other parents spanked you if you got out of line, even though they weren't your parents. You and I remember that time when the elders or older people in the community will hold you accountable. But now, the community is very fractured, it's very fragmented, and it's very isolated. And a lot of kids, because of that's happening, they don't have that safeguard of having elders to guide them in the right direction. And, like I said, many of the people feel very hopeless about these conditions because they don't see things getting any better, sadly. But it does appear that Habistophilia is a phenomenon that it's gotten worse, and many women love bad boys. They call good guys boring. He's boring. He's a lame. He could be a good, decent man. Our fathers probably been lame, so they were living in this current generation now. And so many men have decided, to exercise our options to travel abroad, and it's unfortunate to the women that are good women, but when you try to talk to some of the women ex-church girl about changing their ways, do they receive it with open arms, or do they reject you and disrespect you as a woman?
They don't disrespect me. They just decline respectfully. I'll put it like that.
Oh, wow. Right.
It's hard to tell a grown woman how to live her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think being an example has to be the only way you can get through to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Just be the example. Don't come out. A woman my age shouldn't be coming out in booty shorts and Daisy Dukes and having sleeper rounds and pajama parties at her house.
Mm-hmm.
With men, we just have to be the example. So that's why I decided to come on, because I can't change the world, but maybe somebody hearing my story may do something different tomorrow.
Where are you from again?
In a positive way.
Where are you from again?
I'm originally from Chicago. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, attended Crane High School, and
Crane,
I moved to Georgia in 2013, and this is my second new home.
Okay, what month were you born?
In May.
Oh, you stubborn. You're a Taurus. You get off my phone.
Stop. Leave her alone. Stop. Leave her alone.
Thank you, James.
look at James over there trying to cap. but thank you, ex-church girl, dear. I really appreciate you popping in, adding clarity. I love to hear a woman's perspective. We got a couple of good shows coming up Saturday. So, guys, bring the ladies in, get your popcorn. It's going to be a great show. But thank you for adding clarity to the discussion, ex-church girl. Thank you. And maybe I'll interview you at some point and talk about that ex-church girl name. That's very unique. But thank you, dear. I appreciate it.
Say one more thing, please.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I really appreciate the guys coming in, being respectfully, giving their opinion. And, we can continue to fight each other, but that's not the solution. So I really appreciate this channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No doubt. I appreciate it. Thank you, dear. All right. Thank you, ex-church girl. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
All right. So real quick, LC, I'm going to sign off in a minute. What did you get from the conversation, brother? We're actually starting with James Turner and then LC, and then we're going to sign off. Thank you.
Yeah, you got me already. Again, just first of all, brother, you're doing a great thing. Keep it up. Your membership is going to grow, so don't worry about that.
Right.
Again, you never know how many people and who you're helping at this particular point. So, and again, with the ladies that like bad boys, so to speak, you really need to delve into that and understand that, why you feel that way. Is it due to a lack of self-esteem? Is it something else going on? Begin to embrace counseling and therapy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's totally confidential. Find somebody that you trust, and as we always say, do the work. Do the work. Nothing's going to change unless you start to change your mind. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's all I want to say, man.
All right, thank you, brother. I'm Logan LCC, and I would like to add clarity, brother. What you get from the show, real quick? We're about to end it. What would you like to say? Go ahead.
Well, it was eye-opening at the same time, not eye-opening, because in a way it's like I kind of saw this going on as well with the whole bad boy thing. Mm-hmm. But it's good to know that conversations like this are being talked about, because we have a lot of young men, especially black men, because they're not really a so-called bad boy. A lot of young black men and young men in general are trying to act like somebody they're not. They're trying to do things that they wouldn't do on a day-to-day basis to get in good graces with a woman who isn't even all that. So for us to have these type of conversations, for us to shed light on the stuff that is going on, is good, and it's a step in the right direction for us to try to fix these things that are already going on. And it's just real good to know that you have older black men like yourself, trying to speak on these things and really guide the young youth, especially including me as a young black man. I do have my father in my life. However, it takes a village to raise a child, and it's good to know you have older black men who are trying to lead and show us the ropes, so we can now pass it on to the next generation of black men as well. So I'm really glad that we have more channels like this, and I hope your channel grows to oblivion, because this is what more young black men need to hear.
No doubt, man, and I appreciate that, man. You can help the channel grow by sharing the content. Share it with like-minded people. To the 28th that are watching, please share this content. If you have not donated, donate to Cash App, $7 Smalls. Thank you, I forgot the brother's name. GCLA. Thank you, brother. Thank you, MC Recovering Wellness. Let me read your super for the $5 super sticker. MC Recovering Wellness said that I see people I grew up with still stuck in the bad boy and bad girl life. The afterlife is a struggle for both. And you're correct, brother. And that's due to rampant dysfunction in our community. So once again, guys, this has been One for the Books. Thank you, LCN. Share the content, guys, to the 25 that are watching. Thank you, guys. We got some more quality shows coming up. I really appreciate everything you guys have done. These conversations are very important as we continue to put the initiative of sustainability and family. I told you guys that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized, and understanding female psychology is paramount to the functioning of a person. We're going to have another great show coming up soon, hopefully on Saturday, so you guys be on standby. And once again, guys, thank you for everything that you're doing as I seek to bring wellness and wholeness to this dark time in this country where so many are more or less parading toxic nature and toxic manifestations. Habistophilia, once again, is a byproduct of women loving abusive men. Will it continue in this current condition called America? Will it get better? Only you will decide, and only you can know. And so once again, guys, this has been a great show. And guys, thank you once again. Signing off, guys. You have a good night, and be well.
Tell them run it off. I wake up. Yeah. I wake up, flex, thumb down now. Check, no drip this. Wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first die. Stretch. Tell them run it up. I wake up, flex, thumb down now. Check, no drip this. Wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first die. Stretch. Tell them run it up. 9 out of 10 roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turned to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my homies.